Well, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Ryan rambled in here off his bike this morning and said he apparently knows the future president of Ireland. And rather than just treat him as a crazy individual, I think we're going to indulge him. He has a claim.
Once in a while, you got to just indulge those claims because they might be true. Catherine Connolly is running for president of Ireland. The polls have her, enormously ahead, and the election is on Friday. She is expected to be the next president of Ireland. When I was in Dublin over the summer, I met up with Abubaker Abed, my colleague at Dropsite. He was a reporter for us from Gaza. He's now in Ireland.
He's very young actually.
Young guy. And we teamed up with The Ditch and Pauly Doyle and did an event with the woman who had just launched her presidential campaign at the time, Catherine Connolly. And it was held in the basement of this pub, and it was a really riveting conversation. And to see her in conversation with Abubaker was quite interesting. You can see we'll link to the entire thing down in the show notes, but we'll play, about 15 minutes of it after this. But after that, she had a series of kind of controversies in the presidential race, where, for instance, she was asked to condemn Hamas, and she said, look, Hamas is part of the fabric of Palestinian society. Who are we as people who want our own liberation, our own anti-colonial struggle, to tell other people how to run their liberation struggle? And Irish elites kind of were pretty aghast at that comment. Irish voters were like, yeah, that tracks. And so she's on track to be the next president of Ireland. So let's roll a little bit of this clip. And so this starts with Catherine Connolly getting asked by Pauly Doyle why there's this gap between what the Irish kind of public wants its government to do when it comes to relations with Israel and Palestine, and what the Irish government actually does. So,
and you guys are in the basement of a pub over the summer. So this would have been July or August?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And as you can see in there, she starts off by joking about how insanely hot it was. It was like over 100 degrees. The room was, it's absolutely packed, standing room only. And they don't have air conditioning over in Dublin. So you can see we are all sweating bullets in there. But it was very much worth it. And it was cool. We have a ton of Dropsite and Breaking Points viewers and readers in Dublin, which is also kind of cool to see.
Believable.
So this is for y'all.
This is the first time I've been in a sauna with all my clothes on. A communal sauna at that. I don't mean to be flippant. I don't know where to go with this, really, because it's so overwhelming to listen to yourself here. I don't know what words to follow. I don't know how we've come to the stage where we're hearing that description and trying to explain it. Something has gone horribly wrong with humanity, with the narrative. And you're asking me directly about the government. I actually think the government believe their own rhetoric to a certain extent. I think the government believe their rhetoric to a certain extent. I think they actually believe they're doing something and they're the best boys in the class or the best girls in the class. And they've told us that repeatedly for fear we didn't understand it the first time. And so we've reduced the world to them and us. We're really back to that, them and us. We're back to you're with us or against us. And it's frightening, actually, to watch it on a daily basis. And if we look at Palestine, well before the 6th of October in 2023, as has been set out, slaughter was going on one way or another. And when Hamas went over the border, we had to continuously, every time we spoke, condemn that, like the refrain in the Rosary. We had to say absolutely and give that refrain to legitimize what we were going to say. Some people were more courageous than I and said they wouldn't condemn it. I actually had no difficulty condemning it because I was horrified at the violence, as I am with all violence. However, as we all know here, history did not begin on that day. But we were never allowed to give a context. That was not permitted in the Dáil without over and over condemning the attack. And of course, context is very important. And so we're not allowed to do that. And we've struggled to do that. And I want to thank you, because you have no idea the importance of your protest and all the protests that have taken place over the country. It's really, really important. You mightn't think it, but it is having an influence on politicians. However, I don't know how long we can keep on with a genocide going on in front of our eyes. The word ironic is not the right word, but just last week we had a minute's silence for Srebrenica, rightly so. But we made no connection with the ongoing genocide in Palestine. And so there's a disconnect all of the time. And you ask me, how do we move from the government's rhetoric? There's a complete disconnect on so many levels between the government, who think they're doing fantastic, and the actual feeling on the ground. So in my time in the Dáil, Amnesty published their report, and they said there was an apartheid regime being operated by Israel. And our government told us they were uncomfortable with the word apartheid. They actually said, we don't really want to talk about that, uncomfortable with that word. So we let that go. And then 6 human rights organizations were described and designated as terrorist organizations. We let that go. We waited for the evidence, the government said, but there was no evidence ever produced. And then we watched the slaughter of men, women and children, of journalists. And I don't need to say all of this, but it's important to say it, because we're actually watching the slaughter. We're watching the UN being dismantled. We're watching language becoming meaningless. I never understood Kafka when I was doing German. I wasn't able to, I fully understand Kafka now, I can tell you, after my years in the Dáil since 2016. Things just happen. Things just happen. Things are just happening in Palestine. Has nothing to do with Israel, really. So I struggle. I have read everything I possibly can. I came from a background of Leon Uris, Exodus, Mila 18, I think. I wanted to go to the kibbutz. Let me say, there isn't an anti-Semitic bone in my body. I wouldn't tolerate it. But that's the background I came from. And I've made a journey in trying to understand Palestine and read everything I can. The latest, I had the privilege of launching a book in Galway by Fintan Drury. I recommend it. So where am I going with this? We have no choice but to speak out. We're at a point in history where we really have to use our voices to make language mean something, to make our actions mean something. And when we try that, we're demonized, we're isolated, all the tricks of the book to do that with the help of a media that's colluding. So I thank you very much, because it's not easy to provide an alternative media. But it's essential, because we're not going to get it from the leadership in the Dáil, and we're not going to get it. And I'll finish just maybe, misinformation and disinformation. And I tend to laugh nearly hysterically when I hear that, about the government bringing in legislation or something to counter disinformation. In my experience, most disinformation comes from governments, from institutions who protect themselves in a self-serving manner and a narrative all the time. And that consensus mentality, to me, is the greatest threat to democracy. And so if we go back, and I'll finish on this, the banking inquiry, Nyberg did his banking inquiry and published his report. And what jumped off the page was the consensus mentality that allowed the banking crisis. And fast forward to the 2025, and the same mentality is evident in relation to the Children's Hospital, the various debacles in Dublin. And I sit on the Public Accounts Committee. I've read all the reports, and the biggest thing was the absence of questioning. That's what led to all of these very, very serious issues, neglect of children, the absence of questioning and a consensus mentality. So on one level, I don't wish to add to your despair in this sauna in here. We've learned nothing. On the other hand, I learn all the time, because it's the only thing we have left, is to keep learning, keep acting and using our voice, because we have to give hope. We have to stand with the people of Palestine, because if we let it happen, there's serious consequences for us as a nation and as for humanity. Where are we going if we let this happen? Garmak.
I think, in my opinion, that since I've arrived here, and just to let people know that the most well-known European country or Western country that Gazans know is Ireland, by the way. There's so much love to you, so much really hope in you from Gazans, and they're always talking about you. And this hasn't started since this genocide started in October, but it's always been durable for many years, and we're very well aware of that. But I think since I've arrived here, one thing the Irish government is quite worried about is that it is very pressured by the protests, but what we're seeing every single day from protests, calls to end the apartheid regime, to pass the Occupied Territories Bill, and to cut the Israeli bonds and everything. I am aware of that. But I think, in my opinion, the only obstacle that the government has is America, because it doesn't want to it doesn't want to make America angry with it. And Israel controls America, not the other way around. So the Irish government is, because there are a lot of investments here from Americans in this country, and we're all aware of that, and have seen that, and I've read about it. But also, this government doesn't like it. What it's all doing is just pleasing the United States and the U.S. administration, and that if we make the U.S. angry, we can't attack Israel, or we can't do whatever we want. So, but we have to be really aware of what it means. I don't think any of you is happy that your airspace is allowed to be used to transport fighter jets from America to Israel to kill and bomb children. I don't think any of you is happy with that. I don't think that those politicians were still voting for a genocide over the Israeli bones, or I'll say in mere platitudes. And particularly the Irish newspapers here, particularly the Irish Times and the RTE, are still producing stories justifying the ongoing slaughter that we're seeing every single day. No one should be allowed to accept this. So what Palestinians need from the government, because in the end there is hope in people who still care. There is hope in people who still, who still have a pure heart about the plight of an entire population. And think about it, which part of this world is being bombed? Which part of this world is suffering? Which part of this world is being starved? Which part of this world is being exterminated every single day? It's only Gaza. So why are we not having just the mere rights of any human beings around the world? Why this Irish government, which knows the meaning of colonization, which knows the meaning of starvation, which knows the meaning of imperialism, it knows everything about this because it has been colonized by Britain. So it knows everything. So why this government is still not acting? Because in the end, Gaza is the prologue, and then everything will happen. And you know that Britain is funding this. Britain is the most complicit probably country in this genocide after the U.S. administration or after the United States. So what Palestinians need from the government, from this government, is just to listen to its people, as I told you. Like, pass the Occupied Territories Bill, cut the Israeli bonds. It's not important. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world. And just listen to your people. It's enough. It's enough slaughter. So this complicity, just to allow in the Schengen airport, allow fighter jets without even interrogating them, without even stopping them, without even asking them anything, but rather you will see people saluting them there in the airport. And this is just absolutely not something that you really want. So what we all want from this government is just to listen to its people. If you don't want to help, the least you can do, don't contribute to killing us. That's all we want as Palestinians.
Maybe Catherine, you could speak to that question about the role of the U.S. And then, if you did become president, my understanding is it's a pretty ceremonial position, but in that ceremony, there could be interactions with the Vice President of the United States, the President of the United States, if there are meetings. Would you take meetings like that, or how would you use the office to try to get the yoke of the U.S. off of Irish government so that it could have a more democratic connection to its public?
Hello, am I speaking from the diaphragm? Yeah, it's quite a complex question. Yeah, I'll do my best. Where do I go with this? I am who I am. I can't pretend. My only strength is my honesty and what I feel, and I do my best to educate myself and reflect and speak. So it seems to me I have no choice but to use my voice to speak out. I can't be presumptuous enough to jump ahead being president. I'm not trying to avoid your question. It's certainly, let me take it before then. I think, as you've said, we're absolutely intricately bound up with America. They determine our policy. We're allowing the bullies to determine our policy. So we have a bully in America who changes his mind. But the problem didn't start with the bully in America who changes his mind every 5 minutes, every day. It started before that, when the Democrats failed to see what was happening and when they failed to see people turning away from the Democrats, and they failed to analyse it. If we come back here, the government is out of touch. They simply don't realise the strength of outrage on the ground, not just in relation to the genocide in Palestine, but in relation to war, the normalization of war, the normalization of genocide, the normalization of homelessness, of a housing crisis, all of which shouldn't be normal. And people are outraged on the ground and are crying out for solutions. And we have the solutions, but the narrative from the advisors and from the neoliberal ideology is very, very strong with the help of the press. So if we go back to Ireland, Ireland has done very well by its government in terms of the recognition of Palestine. However, I'm on record for saying they're recognising Palestine when it's almost destroyed. So while they're clapping themselves on the back, in one sense, it's easy to understand them because they are top of the class compared with other countries, including Arab countries. They are top of the class. So they see themselves as doing very well. What we see is democracy in peril, because we either agree with the narrative that we need to be very careful with America, and we heard the ambassador, I think the American ambassador to Israel, telling us we were intoxicated on our own narrative. So, but we need to stand up because we have everything to lose if we don't. Whether I do that now as a candidate for the presidency and in the best way I can if I was president, certainly. And under the Constitution, the role of the president is set out and it's narrow enough. The symbolism of it is very important because, as we know in this country from Northern Ireland as well, symbols are powerful and they can be used. So the symbolic role can be used. And I must comply with my duties if I was there under the Constitution and by law. However, one of the articles gives the president specific role in relation to the welfare of the people of Ireland. And that's quite a broad part in the Constitution. The person becoming president takes a public vow, absolutely a solemn promise to serve the people of Ireland and the welfare of Ireland. And so I don't think the welfare of Ireland is served by us joining warmongers, by adding to the military-industrial complex. I think we have everything to lose and nothing to gain by increasing of course, we need to look after our defence forces. So let me get that on the record. But joining in the boys' club to back up the profit-driven arms industry is not in our interest. And we have everything to lose by doing that. We have to use our voice for peace. Will I do that if I was elected and had the privilege of being president? You couldn't stop me. You couldn't stop me using my voice for peace. you couldn't stop me as a mother of 2 children who are grown up and are 2 men now, so they're not around and they're not embarrassed by that. But once a mother, always a mother. I'm horrified that we would be using war as a way to achieve peace. It's back to front. So we should be working, and that's what I would do as a president, working to make the Republic mean something, working towards a united Ireland with consent and recognising diversity and using my voice, but more importantly, acting as a role model. That's a bit pretentious, but enabling and empowering people on the ground to use their voices, whether that's for peace or to do what they want to do. It is vital. And as I said earlier on, we're at a turning point. So we need people to take courage in their hands and use their voices. Consensus is not healthy. Dissent is very good. And diversity and the cherishing of diversity, it's absolutely vital for a functioning, healthy democracy.
Okay, that's it for us, and we'll see you on Friday, right?
We'll see you on Friday. I did want to mention, I was referencing a report that was done by a conservative group on connections between like open society, tides funding, that sort of stuff going into groups that potentially are knowingly funding literal ruckus in this case. So I was trying to remember whose study it was. It was Capital Research Group or Capital Research Center, which is a conservative group, and they have a report that's pretty interesting. Ryan and I was talking just a little bit about it while we were between segments. That they show Open Society has sent money into a group called the Ruckus Society, also something called the Center for Third World Organizing. You can check that out on your own, make your own decision.
And those groups do direct action. They do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it violent at all, but they do direct action.
So again, yeah, to just reiterate what we said in that segment, I'm not trying to make the case that there's a vast right-wing, or there's a vast left-wing conspiracy, I should say, to send Soros money to like literal black bloc violence taking over America's cities. But you can go ahead and check out that study. We'll link it.
We are not funded by liberal philanthropy, so go to breakingpoints.com, upgrade to a premium subscription, and make sure that we don't have to go with our tin cup to Soros and the Tides Foundation.
That's right. Yeah, we are only 90% funded by Soros. That's right. 0%. We're funded by you. We're funded by you. And we're so grateful for that. So breakingpoints.com, you can get a premium subscription, which gets you access to the second half of the Friday show, where we really have all the fun and do AMAs. And maybe Lyle will show up again sometime soon.
We can hope. All right, we'll see you there.
See ya.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.